What's going on, guys? jblader here, back again doing another Minecraft tutorial. Today, guys, I'm going to show you the ultimate storage system. I've created, in my opinion, the most efficient and all-around best storage system currently available in vanilla Minecraft. It is server friendly, doesn't cause any lag, and isn't that hard to build. Now, I need to preface this is going to be a very long video, but I've broken it down into parts for your convenience. If you just want to see how to build it, go ahead and click on the part in the description that'll take you to the beginning of the tutorial. But if you want to know all the intimate details about the system, like why did I choose some items and how much storage should go to what items, why did I combine multiple things into one, well, you're in the right place. Firstly, thank you guys for the response on my last storage system tutorial. Item management is a huge part of vanilla Minecraft, and I really enjoy making systems that can make things more efficient and work well. The last storage system I designed was a great start, with the main concept of the video based around not the design itself, but more about the item choice and choosing which items you needed to sort, in what order, and how much storage should go to those items. I made a modular system that allows you to prioritize items, and I built this design 3 or 4 times in my own survival worlds and SMP worlds over the last 2 years. While doing so, I was able to experience firsthand the pros and the cons of the system. The old system is huge. It sorted all the crucial items you needed in a quick manner, was fairly efficient, and it aged well into 1.13. However, shulker boxes added a lot of more options for storage into the game, which really changed the way that I used this system. The cons of the system included it took a crazy amount of resources to build, even though I will say this one that I'm building today still takes a crazy amount of resources, but having any automated system is going to take a lot of resources in the end. Another con was having all the items spread out so far in that cross pattern meant that you were constantly running around trying to get the items that you needed for projects, and the system was not compact enough to really fit into a base, but instead you had to design the base around the system. Moving forward, I wanted to reanalyze how I picked blocks and what storage they deserved. I needed to not say that netherwart blocks were equal to cobblestone blocks, because they both deserve their different amount of storage, because you're simply going to have a lot more cobblestone than you're going to have netherwart blocks. I also wanted to try to compress the design, make it easier, so instead of walking, let's say 60 or 70 blocks to pick up 2 items, you can only walk maybe 30 blocks to pick up those same items. With 1.14 around the corner, I knew it was time to update this design. So many new blocks in the game, it is time to think more like 1.14 instead of designs that were made in 1.9 or 1.10. I want to say I did not engineer any of the redstone contraptions you're going to see today. I did combine them and design them and make sure that everything was functioning, and I of course created this tutorial, but I did not design a lot of these redstone contraptions. They've been around in the community, and for example, one of the designs here we're using today is going to be a Gnembon tutorial, and I'll put the world download for his video in the description, as well as the video itself, so go and check it out. Although he doesn't do a direct tutorial on the video, there is a world download, and his system is really great. Within the world download that I've included below, you'll be able to see some of the blocks that I decided that I needed to organize and how I wanted to organize them within the system. Like my last design, this design is modular. You can expand it if you decide that you don't want to sort the items like I do in my worlds, or you can shrink it. Of course, what I'm showing you in this video is the items that I needed to sort out in my survival worlds. I played on those worlds and I said, yep, these are the items that I need a lot of storage for, and I never even touched some of the other items, so why do they deserve 2 or 3 double chests if I don't even own them and I've been playing on the world for 6 months. Some items like stone and cobblestone, or those that are auto farmable, need a lot of storage. Meanwhile, some blocks like the wood blocks, you're probably never going to have more than a double chest, maybe 2 double chests in the storage system at a time. Other items you may not even want to sort in a system at all, like your diamonds, your lapis, some of the valuable blocks, and you may want to instead keep them in an ender chest system, which is what I do in all of my worlds. So I find that instead of having a one modular system that fits all, it's best to combine multiple systems so that you can separate the blocks that you need to store a lot of and the items that you may not even have, or you have very low amounts of them. Here is a look at some of the items that you'll be able to see that there's a chest beside them, and that chest beside them signifies how much space that they get into the new system. I will note here, I do not think that this system will work in Bedrock. I'm not sure about Pocket Edition or consoles, but I know that this currently is working on the snapshot, so hopefully, fingers crossed, they don't make any crazy changes that will break anything here. I don't think they will, since we're getting close to the official release of 1.14. This is an expensive mid to late game build. It is modular and expandable, so you can just build a piece if you need it, but an iron farm will probably be needed. In my opinion, simple iron farms aren't that hard to build. You build one, it usually takes 2 to 3 hours to build it, then you AFK for 12 to 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours. You should be able to have enough iron to go ahead and build your system off of that alone. Like any big build, there's a lot of room for errors. In fact, I made some errors later in the parts of the design that I didn't design myself. So I will say that there will be a troubleshooting section in this video. If you're running into problems, watch that first. You might be able to find something simple that you're missing, but just look over the world download very carefully. Hopefully you can catch everything. If you don't know how to use a world download, there are a lot of tutorials online. It is very easy. It's not that large of a download, so you shouldn't have a problem with that. Yet again, I did not create a lot of these redstone contraptions here. I'm just combining them and making the tutorial so it's easier for you guys, and I did, of course, design the system in general. So, I hope you guys are ready for the tutorial. Let's get started. Now, I know in my last video that I got a lot of comments saying that this is a crazy amount of resources, and it is, but there's no real cheaper way to make something like this, so hold on to your seats. We're going to go over all the material that you're going to need. In the chest in front of you are some of the material. Let's start with the expensive ones. Hoppers, you're going to need around just below 700 hoppers. There's 5 iron in each hopper, so it's going to come out to around 52 stacks of iron, which is just shy of a double chest full of iron. I know that's a lot of iron, but, it is an option. Then you'll need 750 or so chests, 150 or so comparators, 50 or so powered rails, around 230 repeaters, around 400 pieces of redstone dust, a ton of blocks of your choice, observer blocks, I'm not sure how many, not too many, I think around 30 or 40, ice, you'll need a lot of ice, a lot of glass panes, some droppers, you probably want a water bucket and a water source, a few trapdoors, some jack-o'-lanterns, a singular redstone lamp, about 10 or 15 cakes, and some furnaces to make everything run a little bit smoother there at the end. Shulker boxes also are an option, something that you can add. These numbers aren't exact, they should get you close. I know it is a ridiculous amount of resources, but keep in mind that in the past we've had iron farms, so it's not too hard to get that much iron. A day or two of AFKing and you can get that. So let's go ahead and begin with the tutorial. For your convenience, there will be a pause indicator on the screen. It looks like this. When you see this, it's probably best to go ahead and pause the video and catch up because I'm about to go into something, or I'm about to show you a lot of stuff that you can do. Decide where the center block of the system is going to be. This isn't the center of the system, but rather the center of the access to all the storage. You're going to build a 9 by 9 area around that, and then put a strip of blocks on each side to make it a 9 by 11. Then on one of the sides, in this example I choose the northern side here, you're going to build a little wall interface for the shulker box system later in the video. So it's going to be 5 tall, 9 wide, with a 3 block gap in the middle, like so. Then we're going to go ahead and face the southern side, and on this side we're going to build the long hallway that's going to be the bulk storage of the system. So it's going to be 5 wide, and then 3 long of 1 block. This is going to be an indicator here, and then we're going to build a 5 wide 9 block, then a stripe of 1, another 9 by 5, another stripe of 1, another 9 by 5, a stripe of 1, and another 9 by 5, and a stripe of 1. What you'll see is we'll have basically 5 modules here. Each of them is 5 blocks wide and 9 blocks long. And this is this long hallway that all the items, or all the blocks in this case, are going to be stored on. So we're going to make one correction right here. The next to last strip, you're going to make it 5 wide, and then you're going to expand the 2 next sections down. So now you're going to have 3 sections that are 9 long, a 5 long section, and then 2 more 9-block long sections. I hope this isn't confusing. It's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully you can see in the video exactly what I'm doing. We're making this little area so that the items can get realigned once we drop them lower. Now it's time to place some of the chests. You're going to put the input system in first. I just decided to put it right here, but you can move it if you want. I put it in this little 3 long section right here. And then you want to come off to a side and you're going to build an item elevator. I'm not sure how tall this will have to be right now because it really depends how you build it in the world, but in this one I built it like 10 to 11 blocks tall. We put a dropper on the bottom, and then you're going to build a glass elevator up like 10 to 15 blocks. And then you're going to pour water in it. If you want your items to move slightly faster, I recommend putting kelp on the bottom. You only really need 1 kelp because it'll grow out, but I go ahead and fill it up here. Then we're going to run hoppers from that chest we placed a minute ago into the dropper. That way when we put items in the chest, they'll go to the dropper. This is a simple item elevator we're going to be building here. So you'll put a block beneath the dropper and then to the side, and we're going to be building a simple redstone indicator here that will fire the dropper if there's an item in the dropper. And you can see there I put 2 pieces of redstone in, it went off. It just takes 2 repeaters, a comparator, and some blocks and some dust, and you'll see the redstone floats up to the top. Comparator pointing out of the dropper, and then the repeater pointing away from that, and then a repeater pointing into the block. Now it is time to place the bulk amount of the chests. You're going to want to place it a block out, as you can see here. And for these first 3 modules that we're building on this side, you're going to stack 7 double chests. So that means 14 chests on each row in general. And you can see here I am shifting and stacking all the chests. What's really nice in 1.14 is that we don't have that trap chest nonsense. We can just use regular chests. So you can see here I am stacking the chests. By alternating here, we'll be able to make sure that the items flow to the bottom chest, which is really nice. And then we're going to go ahead and do the next 2 modules here. Something I like to do is make little pillars here, although they're not necessary. I like it because it is able to block up the, or break up the modules. So I go ahead and put the pillars here around each side. Now the next few modules, which are going to be 9 long as well, we're only going to do 2 double chests. This is that moderate amount of storage that I was talking about. And I go ahead and put the pillars up, like I said a minute ago. This just helps me visualize the system a little bit easier. It's not necessary, but I also think it helps the aesthetic later once you're trying to design it around your base. We're going to go ahead and continue the 4 double chest moderate storage around. Build up the pillars as well. That is the majority of the chest placing. And we can store a lot of items in these chests, so that's pretty nice. So next up we have the minor storage, or the single double chest storage basically. It's going to be on the roof or the ceiling right here. So we're going to go ahead and build a 2 module long ceiling on the 5th block up. So you count 4, and then on the 5th block you're going to have that ceiling. And then we're going to knock out some of the ceiling here to put the chest. That way we can access the chest really easily. We're going to knock out the block on the outer inside, and then we're going to place a single double chest in each one of those, and you'll be able to see here that if we go from above, I think it's a little bit easier to see. This is the minor storage, and we're going to have the item sorters on top of this as well. Now, get out your iron, get out your chest. It's time to make a ton of hoppers, and we're going to place the majority of the hoppers of this build right now. Each chest that we just made, that we stacked, we're going to be having hoppers running in to the back of them, all the way around. It takes a lot of hoppers, but this way we'll be able to feed the items directly down to the lowest chest. And yeah, I mean, this is the majority of the hoppers. On the top part, you just place the hoppers above the chest on the inside. Now it's time to begin some of the redstone. This is a simple item sorter that I saw, I think Impulse SV do, but a lot of people have done these types of item sorters and they're not that hard to do. Take and put a block behind a row of hoppers that are pointing into a chest, and then you're going to point a comparator facing backwards outside of that, and then a hopper facing into that comparator. You're going to have a row beneath that are going to have repeaters on. You're going to have redstone dust 2 to 3 blocks behind the comparators. And so hopefully you can see here exactly what it looks like, so I don't have to explain it. This item sorter has been around for years, since like 1.7, so hopefully you guys have seen this before, and it's not that hard to build. So then we're going to basically continue this pattern all the way around this simple item sorter here. We're going to continue it onto the moderate storage, and then we're also going to continue it to the minimal storage on the top. Basically what these sorters do is they look for an item, and if it grabs the item, then the redstone torch will go off, allowing the items to pass through. Remember to put the redstone torches on the bottom of the system here. If you forget to do this, then the items will just pass through and it won't be much of a sorter. Then here on the top part, we're going to be putting the systems on the outside, but it's best to make it moved up a little bit so we have room. So I put a chest and then a hopper, and then I base the sorter off of that hopper. This way we have enough room to have the sorter without it affecting other chests and other hoppers. So this is kind of what it should look like here. Now it's time to put in our ice. Get out your silk touch pick. We'll need glass and ice for this next section. So you're going to put ice next to the hopper over top of the double chest. You're going to put glass there so it stops the water from running. You're going to put panes to stop the water from running onto your redstone. Let's go ahead and connect the items elevator that we had earlier up to this system. You're going to place 2 cakes next to the hopper. This is going to align the items next to the hopper. And then let's go ahead and connect this up. It may be slightly different for you based on how you built the system, but what you need to make sure you do is have the items turn into the cake like you can see here. Then we're going to go ahead and place the ice on the other sides. I'm going to repeat the same thing here, so hopefully you understand what I'm doing. We're making the items run around this corner, and every time the items have to run around a corner, they have to be realigned on cake. So same thing here, we're going to realign the items on a cake, and then they'll flow down the ice. We use ice because the water will push the items much faster. We use cake because it is a perfect hitbox to align the items between the hopper and the ice. And then you don't technically have to use glass, but I recommend using glass panes. It stops the water and it looks really good, and then the glass also allows you to see the items going through, so I like that. And then over here we're going to build another item elevator later, but for right now you can just put a hopper next to that piece of ice, and that's where the items are going to go up to the minimal storage. But first let's go ahead and set up the water streams up here for the minimal storage. This is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the system, but more or less the same. We're going to be placing ice this time on the 2 insides with a strip of glass going down the middle, and then the panes yet again going on top of the hoppers. Over here on this side we'll need the 2 cakes to align the items, and then down here on the right side we're going to have to have a cake to align the items here, and this is actually a little bit trickier. So we're going to have to set up a system where it basically goes too far towards the west, and then it'll have to realign. So you'll see here I have to kind of move around the cakes and get it to go in the right order, but this is where the items will come in. They'll go around that little corner, hit the cakes, and then align down the system. And then on this side we're going to do a similar thing minus the cakes. This is where anything that doesn't get sorted in the system is going to go into the Gnembon system at the end. So now it's time to put in all the water. There's no real incorrect way to do it. However, I recommend using trapdoors and a bucket of water or ice block if you want to break it in survival. You just need to make sure that there's enough water to go around that the items stay continuously moving. However, I recommend leaving a few blocks in between each source. What this does is allows the items to slow down a little bit. If they go too fast, I think sometimes items can skip the hoppers. I haven't ran into this in a long time, but they might have fixed the way hoppers feed items. But yeah, try to make it move at a decent pace, but not too fast. Around that corner, you're going to make a little contraption to make the items fall down using ice, and then we're going to make the water run all the way around. On this side, we're going to make an item elevator. Same thing as before, the blocks of glass going up, comparator, repeater, clock around the back, and then we're going to make the water run from this item elevator all the way around this system, just like before. And of course, we're going to want to do tests of this later, but we'll come back to that. Right now, just make sure that all the water is in place, make sure that the cakes are in place, and it is finally time to do the Gnembon Sorter. This sorter is much more complicated than what we just did, so I'm going to go to first person and follow along very carefully. First thing, knock out that line of blocks there and put some temporary blocks here. I show you with glass. This is where your shulker boxes are going to go. Now, come down here and you're going to build a floor if there's not one already, or dig out a floor. You're going to come 3 down from the back of that glass, and then you're going to come 11 out. Then you're going to go ahead and build that floor here. So it's going to be 3 down, 11 out, and I like doing it 11 wide. This one here is 9, and I'm going to have to expand it shortly. So go ahead and find the center of that system next to the glass. Put a redstone lamp there. That's going to indicate when the system is being used. Put a block under it, and then go ahead and put a block next to it. We're going to run redstone on that block, and we're going to run a few more pieces of redstone dust, a repeater facing into that redstone dust, a block behind that repeater, piece of redstone dust again, a comparator pointing into that block, so you're going to need 4 of them there, and then 4 comparators facing the opposite direction with 2 pieces of redstone dust, a repeater facing into those pieces of dust, a repeater facing that way, into a comparator, and you make sure you turn this comparator on. This is creating a clock and a loop, and then a repeater on 3 ticks there, into a block, and then a piece of redstone dust there. This is the clock that we're creating. It's comparing the dust, and then that's going to be on 2 ticks. Place a block here, and then 2 pieces of dust there. Here around the back, we're going to have another piece of dust, and we're going to make another comparator clock, but we're going to have a comparator facing one way, and then a comparator facing the other way with 2 pieces of dust behind it, and a repeater facing into that with a piece of dust behind it. And then 5 dust in that direction, and 4 dust in that direction. Then here we're going to place another piece of dust. You can see, yeah, so the 5 there and 4 there. Hopefully you guys understand what's happening here. It is basically a redstone clock and a pulse comparator. And then we're going to place a repeater here into a block. Redstone on top of that block. Should look kind of like that. Then for the next part, you're going to place some temporary blocks here below the temporary blocks we placed before, and go ahead and place them above it as well, because we're going to be running some hoppers. So you place hoppers running into all of those temp blocks that we placed there before. And then up here on top, you can go ahead and knock out this block that we placed before. And we're going to be placing droppers facing towards you. Not that way, but yep, towards you. And you can replace those with chests, I do believe, but droppers are actually cheaper. So then we're going to come back 4 blocks. And on the 5th block, we're going to make a little row on the ground here of some temporary blocks. And on top of those, we're going to have droppers. So we're going to have 5 and then 4. And then that's going to go up 6 blocks. This is how the items are going to go from the bottom of the system up into the top. You can go ahead and knock out those temporary blocks. Now we're going to run some hoppers, and pay attention to this part very carefully. You're going to choose that block there and run those back, and then you're going to point a block. It's very hard to explain what I'm doing here, but basically you're alternating the way the hoppers are pointing so that they will constantly feed into the next dropper. I hope that makes sense. Just try to watch carefully what I'm doing here. So the blocks that I'm getting ready to put white concrete on top of, those hoppers are pointing to the left instead of pointing forward or towards the south. Those droppers there, like I said, are pointing to the left. The rest of them are going to be like these. They're just pointing directly towards the front of the system. I'm sorry I made that mistake here. Hopefully you'll be able to understand what's happening. If you're having a problem, that's probably where it was. I was having a problem with that before. Now we're going to do a similar thing here. Watch how I place these hoppers. 3 here into that. 4 here into that. So hopefully that makes sense. We're having kind of like staggering the hoppers pointing to the right in this case. And you can go ahead and knock out that last hopper there if you'd like. That's basically where all the items at the end are going to go that don't get sorted. But we'll come back to that later as well. Now it's time to do a little bit more redstone. You can place some blocks here. These are going to not be temp blocks. These are going to be permanent. Facing out the droppers in the back, we're going to be placing some sea lanterns here. This is going to stop light updates. That's why we use sea lanterns. And then out of these droppers, we're going to place comparators. And then out of those comparators, we're going to place repeaters. Out of those repeaters, we're going to place some blocks. And then on top of those, we're going to have the repeaters on the full amount of ticks. So the 4 ticks here. Then you're going to be running those into a block. And then on top of that block is going to be redstone torches. And then towards the droppers on this side are going to be redstone torches as well. You might hear the droppers going off. That's good. In the back of these blocks, you're going to have another row of blocks. And then we're going to be basically expanding this torch tower up. So another row of blocks on top of those torches. Redstone torches here. Redstone torches on this inside. Sea lanterns here. Yet again, they limit the amount of light updates, which is going to reduce lag. And then on the inside here, we're going to be placing some more blocks and continuing the redstone torch tower up by placing them on the inside. And then some more lines of blocks here. And then more redstone torches on the inside. As you're going up, you should be hearing the droppers going off. This is a redstone torch tower we're creating, and this is going to be that repeated tower that is constantly pushing the items from the bottom up, and then they go over as they go up. Here we're going to place some temp blocks, and you're going to need to go ahead and grab your observers. You're going to be placing observers facing down all the way above here. And then you can go ahead and remove those temp blocks. And on top of the temporary blocks, we're going to be placing a repeater facing away. And they are going to be on the max amount of default 4 ticks. Now the system is probably going to start looping at this point. It's probably going to drive you nuts. Keep in mind that once we finish everything, you won't be able to hear the system. It will basically be silent. So if go ahead and place some redstone torches here beneath the observer blocks, and that should stop the system from looping. If it's still looping, you can destroy these row blocks here like I did. Just remember to put them back later. I will have a reminder in the video. Now it's time to finish this chain of hoppers. These here are just going to be pointing towards the front. Nothing complicated about that. And this one here on the end is going to be where your items are fed in, but we're going to tackle that in a later part. Now comes some more tricky redstone, so try to follow along if you can. This part here, we're going to be placing observer blocks facing towards you. You can see the little arrows on top are facing towards us. We're going to be placing 9 of them. I believe I placed 10 here, but then we're going to be destroying the one on this end. Then we're going to be running a repeater on the third tick out of these observer blocks into the hoppers. This will lock the hoppers if they need to be locked. And then we're going to place some droppers here. We're going to place 8 droppers facing towards us. And then we're going to place a furnace down here. Then go ahead and grab your powered rails. Now this part, for me personally, was super frustrating, this powered rail part. So just try to do your best with placing them. We're going to go ahead and place 10 there and then just 2 there for right now. But we're going to be coming back and placing a lot more powered rails. Place a block here at this end. And see how these are lining up together? You do not want them to be connected. You want them to be separate so that they act as separate entities. Then we're going to go ahead and be running some more observers towards the front like we were doing earlier. I'm using observers as temp blocks here, but of course you probably would want to use a different block. You're going to run the powered rails all the way down. So you're going to have those 10 observers there. And then you can, the 9 observers there, and then the powered blocks. I'm going to use green here to signify the next line. They can be whatever block you want. We're going to be running repeaters on top of the observers on the 3 ticks. And then you can probably see we're developing a pattern here, and we're going to be kind of continuing this pattern all the way up. This powered rail here at the end, we can fix by adding on a block. And then, well, it takes me a moment to fix it, but that's basically how you get those to align. We're going to be placing another line of blocks here. Yet again, I'm doing green just so that you can understand that it's a different part. And then we're going to be placing repeaters here. On the 3rd tick again, you're probably seeing the patterns develop. And then up here, same thing. So now it's time to place more observers, and these observers aren't too hard to place, but the next series of observers that we're going to be placing are going to be very hard. I'm using the ones in the back as temp blocks. Yet again, you can use whatever temporary block you want. I'm just using those because they're on my hotbar. So now we've got to place observers on top of these repeaters, but facing forward. I think it's best to put some temporary blocks in here to do that, but as you see, you need them to be facing forward. So this is how I did it. And then on top of this block, you're going to have repeaters again on that 3rd tick. Go ahead and grab this slab here, and you're going to be placing some slabs on the side of the observer, and then next to this dropper, and then on the observer again. And these are going to help you run the powered rails up. You're going to have to run the powered rails underneath the observers and behind the observers, so you might have to backtrack a little bit, but basically you need the observers, you need the powered rails to not be connected yet again. And you can see even here when I'm filming, this is my 2nd time building it, but it was still very tricky for me to align these powered rails. The trick is to put a block at the end and then remove that block once you're done. Anyway, you can see there I finally got them all aligned, and then I just put the observer back in place. And then we're going to be placing some more observers here. These are kind of hard to place as well, so just be patient. Use temp blocks. They need to be facing forward. You can see I'm clicking on the right side of that green block in order to place them forward. If you point on the left half of it, it will point towards you, which is not what you want. Let's go ahead and run the last line of powered rails. I think running the powered rails is probably the most frustrating part of this. If you can manage to get through that, then you're almost done. We are almost done. We're on the last part of it here. You're going to place a block there with a redstone torch on top, block there, redstone torch on top, block there, redstone torch on top. We're repeating this block tower, or this redstone tower that's going up. Change that to a slab, or just grab a slab there, and then we're going to be putting 2 repeaters, one on 3 ticks and one on the 4 ticks, and then you're going to be placing a torch on the side of that block and a repeater on the default. Do not change it. Torch on the side there, repeater, default, do not change it. 2 repeaters right here, yet again on 3 and 4. And then another 2 repeaters right here, yet again on 3 and 4. So you can go ahead and put your redstone torches back here on the back. You can go ahead and put your output. It's going to be on this side where I said earlier. What I decided to do is just run a hopper line off. And then you need to put a piece of redstone dust or repeater and a block right there. That is very important. If you don't have it, it won't work. Now it's time to have the feed into from the other system into this new system. So basically we're just going to run the ice around. We're going to make the water push the items into the trapdoor. They're going to fall into the hopper. Should be pretty self-explanatory here. We're going to remove those temp blocks, and you can now put double chest there, single chest, trap chest, or my personal favorite, the shulker box system. So now it is time to test the system. So in order to make these item sorters up here work, you need to put 41 of the item you want to sort, and then 4 random blocks, or 4 blocks that aren't going to be in the system at all, so like named blocks, or 4 blocks that are already in that hopper. So you can see here I put the cobblestone and the granite and the andesite already in these hoppers, so that's the items that they're going to sort. I'm going to go ahead and throw a few of these in. I'm also going to throw in some birch blocks because I don't have birch blocks in the system, and every other hopper is filled with blocks except these birch blocks. So you'll see the blocks that are getting sorted are going around, the andesite, the granite, the cobblestone, the stone. They're going into their correct location. But once we get around to these birch blocks, you'll see they'll go ahead and pass all of these hoppers. And like I said, the rest of the system, the hopper is already filled with blocks that aren't in the system. So they're not going to get sorted. Instead, they're going to go into the Gnembon Sorter. And as you can see, they go over here. They go around the entire system and they pass all of these because, yeah, they're not in the system. It's really good to test an item maybe with a wither skull or an item that just isn't in the system, like a named one, and make sure everything's working properly. And because this is the next open slot that we have, they all go into there. So everything there is working perfectly. It's good to do a check like this. Just make sure that you're not missing an item. All the items are flowing around correctly. You can see here I'm going to go ahead and do another test by filling up all the shulker boxes except for this red one. I'm going to have a single piece of red wool. The rest of them are going to be filled with items. And then I'm going to put some red wool into the system, and I want to make sure that it ends up in that shulker box and that it isn't being lost. So we're going to go ahead and put it in the system. The red wool is going to go all the way around. It's going to go through the Gnembon Sorter. You can see here it's going through. And then it's finally being fed into that red shulker box. So that is exactly how it should work. It is working perfectly. So that is awesome. Over here, this is the output I was talking about earlier. I'm just going to run the output into, in this case, a shulker box, although it can really be ran into anything. Another item sorter, it can be ran into a stack of double chests, whatever you want. Now that you've built the system, hopefully everything is working perfectly, just like the one in my world is. But there are some common errors that I make. I forget the redstone torches on this bottom side a lot. You need to make sure that all the items in these hoppers are correct. It needs to be 41 and then the other 4. If you forget one of these, then yeah, they're going to get filled. It's going to get backed up. Sometimes ice breaks or melts, which is why you have to watch your light levels up here. Sometimes the trap doors are down. If they're down like that one, it's okay, but if you see they're down like this one where the pane moves over, the blocks are going to get stuck there. So make sure your signs are in the right location, or if you're using trap doors, everything is okay. Check your water streams and make sure you have enough momentum, because if you don't, what you'll end up with is an item that'll get stuck right at the end, and yeah, they won't fall. So instead, you'll just have a clump of items here where they should be going around the system. Make sure that the cakes are lining all your items correctly. I think ender chests also work, but I feel like cakes are a little bit less expensive. I also recommend just making sure you check the simple redstone, because sometimes it's the simple stuff that you mess up the most. You really want to check for item overflow. Make sure that none of your chests are getting so full that the items are getting stacked up in the item sorter. If they get stacked up, then they break that little module. They'll break the 3 or 4 that are around it, and then items will start piling into those chests. So a way you can avoid this is by putting hoppers on the bottom and then shulker shells pointing up, not out like this, but just for example. And that way, if you get to like the cobblestone one here gets too full, you can break off that shulker box. Now it's time to prep for survival. In survival, when you build this, you're probably going to want to put furnaces over the top of the hoppers. The reason why is how hoppers work. They are constantly searching for items unless they've searched recently, I believe. It doesn't really matter how they work. You just need to know that putting furnaces and droppers on top of hoppers limits the way they search, which can help with lag in the long term. You want to put jack-o'-lanterns above some of these redstone blocks. The reason why is it limits block updates and lighting updates. And so it cuts down on lag. Down here you might also want to put some lighting, just so you don't have mob spawning. And then you're going to want to cover some of these spawnable blocks with glass, yet again, to limit mob spawning. You're also going to want to put glass over top of this redstone over here, because I do believe that some mobs can spawn on top of redstone. Here's an example of what the build can look like in survival. I built the build in survival and then decorated it, this time with some wood variants and some quartz. I have item frames, I have all of my shulker boxes storage over here, and I even have a nether portal next to the system. I'm currently standing in the middle of the system, and you can see the feed here. Let me go ahead and put a few items into that. So this is how the system could look like in your survival world. Well, for my closing remarks, guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching and sticking around this video. I know it's a long one, and I even made some mistakes when I was recording it, so I know there's a lot of room for errors, but I think that this system is without a doubt one of the best storage systems that you can have in vanilla Minecraft. Hopefully you guys build it and enjoy it, and if you did enjoy the video, please remember to leave a thumbs up. If you want to see crazy builds like this in survival, that's what I do. So subscribe here to my channel where you'll be able to see some of my Let's Plays and some of my other tutorials. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.